guys, welcome back and thanks for joining me for another video. I'm Michelle and I'm an author, coach, and advocate empowering you to find and follow your design. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 myths about self-love and busting each one of them. I'd like to share with you 3 myths about self-love that many of us have, and I'd like to bust each one of them one by one. So, the first one I want to share with you is a myth that many of us have. When we hear the word self-love, we think of it as being selfish. I will say this is one of the ones that was very strong for me in my own personal journey of transformation and changing my life over the last 10 years or so. I would run into the concept of self-love and I would see it and say, oh, no, that's over the top. That's going to be changing my priorities so that it's only about me. It sounds narcissistic, it sounds self-centered, it sounds selfish. It didn't resonate or make sense to me. However, what I want to share with you is that self-love in its reality is actually doing what we were supposed to do from the beginning, which is to be proud of ourselves, to give ourselves exactly what we need, to be our best lover as a way to mimic the fact that the universe and our friends and family love us because of our perfections and our imperfections. And our job is to allow that love all the way in, to believe it ourselves, to increase our worth, our understanding of our worth, that is, to increase our understanding of our worth, and it increases our ability to then love others as well. There is nothing selfish about self-love. In fact, if you think of any 2 or 3-year-old who you might know, those little ones love themselves with abandon, right? They run around, they give everyone hugs, they're so happy with their day, they're excited about everything. They might even be like, I love me, I'm so excited about life. And somewhere along the line, we started to believe the myth that if we're that excited about ourselves, it means we are being immodest, or it means, in terms of not being humble, or it means that we are putting ourselves ahead of everyone else. That's not what a 2 or 3-year-old is doing. They're just so excited to be themselves. So self-love is getting back to that understanding that it's just about being excited to be ourselves, giving ourselves permission to do so, which I talk about in another video, and allowing ourselves to be lavished upon by ourselves. One of the other reasons that self-love is not selfish is that many times when, especially how I had operated before, I had a very long to-do list, well, I still do, of course, and because I didn't believe self-love was important, I always put myself on the list last. Now, think of how many days you've ever finished your to-do list. It's not usually very, very often, because our to-do list is usually longer than can be completed in one day. So because I was never completing the list, I was never on my list in reality. I never got to me. And yet, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, as all of these different roles that I play, as a worker, as an employee, putting myself last meant that I would get drained first. And so actually it's the exact opposite. My job, as they say, when you get on an airplane, put your oxygen mask on first and then help others. It really, really is true. The more that I have found that I've loved myself, the more that gives my daughter, my teenage daughter, permission to do so for herself, the more that I can accept love from others, the more that my relationship flourish, because when someone doesn't feel that I'm accepting their love, it's very hard for them to feel like they want to be in the relationship. So there is nothing that is selfish or ego-creating about self-love. The second myth that I want to talk about is a belief that we have that if we love ourselves, if we are kind to ourselves, if we turn off the critical voice in our head that's telling us, oh, you didn't get to your to-do list today, you didn't do this thing, see, you're lazy, or whatever. our belief is if we get rid of that voice and we just speak with ourselves with kindness, that we're just not going to get things done in a day. We're not going to feel motivated to do the thing. We're not going to feel pressured to perform, to get things done, to be productive, to be everything we need to be in a given day. I definitely also believed this one very strongly for a long time. I believed that if I wasn't harsh to myself, if I wasn't holding my feet to the fire, if I wasn't constantly telling myself how I wasn't getting things done and how I really needed to just get on the ball, I believed that if I didn't do those things, that I'd end up being a lazy blob that would never get out of bed and would never, figure out life, and I would just end up being unproductive and, not part of society. I will tell you, having gone through the journey, and I have various videos about this that you'll see, the journey of asking my shadow self, my ego, to be quieter with its criticism, and in general to stop the criticism, and rather to have the noble self or the shadow self, either voice in my head, share with me encouragement and love and gratitude and trust that everything is going to get done, and that if it didn't today, that to have compassion with myself and to love myself because of my imperfections instead of in spite of them. When I've done all of those things, I have been more productive, more centered, more aware, and more contributing, I would say, than I had before. Now I want to pause for a second. I don't believe that the litmus or the value of a person is in how productive they are. I think that is another myth for another day to get rid of. I think our value is in the fact that we exist, that the universe asks that we exist in this exact moment, and that we are here. End of story. That being said, we do live in a physical world where there are things that are to be done, right? So keeping the bathroom clean and feeding ourselves and spending time with friends and family and engaging in a profession and serving our communities and things like that, right? So there's value there. Seeing it just as productivity ends up being, a little bit too narrow. But anyways, I digress. So what I have noticed is the more that I've encouraged myself and been my biggest cheerleader, which I have another video about that as well, the more I have realized that I have stepped up more. The ability for me to have written the book that I have written in the last year is because instead of saying, you should write a book, what are you doing with your life otherwise, which would have been probably my languaging before, like I've got to show something for this, 40 plus years that I've been in this world. But instead, the language for me was, I've been writing a lot of things. I think maybe it would make sense to just share them. Now, I share in a different video that was actually confronting and scary because, of course, it's very vulnerable to share oneself. But still, there was a level of me that just said, hey, go for it. Why not? So in starting to become my best cheerleader, if you think of a very close friend or a family member or a colleague who is always there saying, oh my gosh, I believe in you, I'm so excited for you, we have to become that person for ourselves. And when we do, we can actually do more and be more in the world than when we sit there and tell ourselves how much we can't do or how much we didn't do or why didn't we complete that task. So debunking completely this idea that if we are kind to ourselves, we will stop being productive. And then the third self-love myth that I want to share with you is something that's a little bit more subtle, and I want to say it a little bit drastically and then give you an example of what I mean. The third self-love myth is that if I withhold love for myself, I will motivate myself to make a particular goal. So, an example of how this shows up is, I'll love myself after I lose the next 10 pounds. I'll love myself after I get that next promotion. I'll be happy and proud of myself once I get married and finally have someone in my life. I will be able to feel happy and content and love myself fully when I ... Whatever you can think of, a six-pack, there's all these different goals that we have for ourselves. But I wanted to introduce it by saying what we're actually doing is withholding love, expecting that to keep us motivated. So let's pause for a second on this. If you were a parent or you heard of someone parenting a child that way, so my child, they got, C's and at school or B's at school, and now I'm going to tell them I don't love them anymore until they get A's. Most of us would say, oh my gosh, that's abhorrent. Your love, you might be disappointed in them, you might want to, encourage them to do better, that's fine. But if I had heard, or any of us had heard, that someone was withholding their love, telling their child, I don't love you until ... I think a lot of us would be completely taken aback. And yet, that's what we are doing to ourselves without realizing it. But it's why I wanted to highlight it, because I think this is a very insidious one. Because many of us, especially as we get, really all times in life, right? We have these goals. I'm going to make a certain amount of money. I'm going to, save this much. I'm going to, lose this weight. I'm going to get, finally exercise, on a regular basis, whatever it is. And we subtly tell ourselves, once I do that, then I'm going to be happy with myself. But we need to accept and love ourselves right now, where we are, with no hesitation, no question, just like we love and accept our children right now for who they are, and in both situations, with love, we still hold them and ourselves accountable. So this is where this difference, where our misunderstanding between criticism and holding our feet to the fire and speaking to ourselves meanly inside, makes us think that's us holding ourselves accountable. But there is a way to lovingly hold ourselves to account that allows us to thrive and not to wither, trying to earn back our own love for ourselves. This is super, super key. Loving accountability looks like, wow, at the end of the day, saying to yourself, wow, I had every intention to work out today. I was not able to. I have various reasons for why that is the case. I'm compassionate with myself because X, Y, and Z happened. And I also know that tomorrow is a new day, and I am excited to be able to work out tomorrow. Now, nothing in there we're using words like I used to use for myself. Oh, it didn't work out. Gosh, I'm just so lazy. I don't understand. I can't do anything right. Why do I even try? Or that's my own old languaging. You will know what yours is. But instead, just like if you're working with a child, when you can keep your calm, I know, I have a child myself, and there are times when we, do lose our temper and our frustration. But when we are fully in our parenting kind of space where we say, I get that this last test you got a B instead of an A. You were looking and I was looking for a little higher. I still love you. This is great. What can I do to support you? How can we move this forward together? And I'm so excited to see you be able to attain your goal this next time around. Imagine the face and the heart of that child, right? The child's going to be like, oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we are going to do better, right? That's the same face and heart of yourself. When you can speak to yourself that way, now you're excited for what's coming, to be able to prove to yourself that you can do better the next time, instead of berating yourself into the opposite. So that debunks the third one. So the 3 self-love myths that we've debunked today is that self-love is selfish, absolutely untrue. That if we love ourselves, we will no longer be productive parts of society, that will end up being lazy, we'll let ourselves off the hook. And the third myth is that if I withhold love from myself, it will motivate me to do better. also a myth. So I'm glad that you've joined. I hope these are of value to you and you can look at making changes in your own understanding and start to add self-love into your world. If you found this video useful, please subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, please hit the bell button so you'll be notified about future videos as they come. If you want to follow me on social media, learn how to buy my book, join my community, or enroll in my courses, please check out the links in the description under this video. Thanks for joining and looking forward to having you in a future video.